Hello, and welcome to Speculations of the UAP and NHI Phenomenon, Volume 2. I know it's been a few months since I posted my last podcast. Just been very busy with life. Um, but I finally feel like I have some time to create a new podcast. And today, I felt that it was really important that we talk about the origins of our civilization and whether we are actually dealing with, instead of extraterrestrials, that we could actually be dealing with other civilizations that are also native to this planet. I know earlier this year, Michael Masters and two other guys from, I believe it was Harvard, and he's from Montana, a university at Montana. They created this document, this research paper, actually. And in this research paper, they hypothesized that perhaps we're not actually just dealing with time travelers or extraterrestrials, but creatures or beings or whatever you would like to call them that are native to this planet. So, what do we mean by cryptoterrestrials? Exactly that. Natives to this planet other than humans. We oftentimes like to think that we are the highest animals on the food chain, if you will, the smartest, the most civilized, the most intellectual, the most technologically advanced. But are we really? That's the question I have. And with these recent UAP sightings that are going on all over, it really begs me to think, is there something more to all this? Is there a breakaway civilization that is more technologically advanced than we are? Well, let's go back into time. Imagine, with our imagination, obviously, and let's really look at where are this phenomena that we see, the UAPs, the NHI, where are their actual origins? And could they have existed on this planet before humans? Think about it this way. The dinosaurs were thought to have died out 65 million years ago. So my question is, and humans have only been around, well, modern humans, 1 to 200,000 years. If you look at Homo erectus, you're going all the way back to and Homo habilis and all these different ones, 1.5 million years. That's like 64 million years of time between the dinosaurs and humans. My question is, what was existing during that whole time? And also, the Earth is approximately 4 billion years old. What was existing before the dinosaurs? So the question is, are we missing out on a civilization that is way more advanced than we are? Way more advanced. I'm saying millions or billions of years. Well, let's take a look at this and see maybe where some of the evidence of this is. And where you can find a lot of this evidence is the fact that people throughout the ages, dating all the way back to Sumerians, dating back to the Romans, and the people of the Bible, have seen things in the sky that is way and on the ground that is way more advanced. And some can just chalk it up to stories. The one that has really hit home to me to explain some technology is Ezekiel. And Ezekiel talks about this whirlwind, this cloud of light, of fire that was in the sky moving. And then all of a sudden, he sees these beings, which he tries to describe in the book of Ezekiel as being a mixture of different animals. Now, the question is, was Ezekiel, if the story was true, and now I don't like to take the Bible literally, but whoever wrote it, whether it was an exact man named Ezekiel or someone else, were they actual witness to something they could not understand? And then you also look at all kinds of ancient civilizations. You look at the Egyptians, the Mayas, the Aztecs, the Greeks. You had people, then again, the Sumerians. And you had people all over the world who had a technological superiority. And the question is, how did they do it without modern technology? And this is the question that many times, Ancient Aliens likes to attribute to extraterrestrials. Okay. My question is, how do we know that they came from the sky? How do we know that these aliens are not us in another form or something linked to us? Okay. So humans are oftentimes thought to have a reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is oftentimes something that is the primordial, the really basic, primitive part of our brain. Why reptile? Well, at one point, could us humans have been reptilian? Could we have been related to a group of reptilian humanoids? This is my theory I'm proposing, hypothesis, however you want to call it. That the dinosaurs didn't all die out, but somehow they either evolved and became bipedal, or someone else, maybe they were aliens, came down and created hybrids by mixing reptilian DNA from the dinosaurs that still lived after 65 million years ago and mix them with their own DNA, creating essentially a hybrid. But over time, they might have mixed that with apes. So essentially, the missing link is the reptilian part of humans. And that is why you oftentimes see throughout the world references to reptiles. It dates back again to the Maya and Aztecs. Think about Quetzalcoatl or Quetzalcoatl, serpent god. Think about dragons in China. Think about the serpent in the story of Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis. It said, the serpent, it wanted Eve to eat the apple from the tree of knowledge. Okay, what knowledge? knowledge of technology that is way far beyond what we were capable of when these stories were written. But Adam and the side that he was on, he didn't listen to the snake and he said, "No, Eve, we can't do that." And so instead of being more technologically advanced, possibly non-interference, these other creatures, whatever you want to call them, Anunnaki is one word that, Zechariah Sitchin had used to describe them, could have been the ones that had said, "We don't want to give you the technology." But these reptilians could have said, "We want you to have it." So that created possibly a battle in the past between these two warring groups, the one that was more reptilian and the one that was more human-like, but obviously, taller giants, if you will. So did these civilizations stay on this planet? And are they presently here? So this would insinuate that the grays are somehow linked to these reptiles. Are the grays somehow a mix of reptiles and humans? They do have similarities to both. And I'll tell you about some of those similarities. Vision. Most reptiles have, these black eyes, sometimes red, but they usually have like black eyes, or they have really big or corneas are usually quite big. That's oftentimes what we see in these grays. Either big black eyes, wraparound eyes, which some say are insectoid. The other thing that's interesting about them is that instead of having fingers like us, they oftentimes have like claws, little claws. So they do, and their skin is also sometimes described as kind of rough. Definitely, rough skin. It's not smooth. It's not as smooth as sometimes they're portrayed as. And how do I know this? Well, plenty of abductees have described beings, or maybe a form of gray, the taller ones, if you will, as having kind of a leathery or rough skin. It's the small ones that have the smooth skin that are most likely less reptilian and less humanoid, and in some sense a little bit more insect-like. So the thing is that how are they creating these hybrids? If that somehow the grays aren't linked to us. They have to be. I just don't think it's possible without some compatibility. Okay. So in a sense, the abilities that we could have had prior to the involvement of the Anunnaki, they were the ones, the Anunnaki, should I say, that most likely deactivated those genes, what we call junk DNA, so that we weren't able to have the superiority, telepathy, cognitive ability, really, like telepathy, and maybe the ability to go out of body as much as we can. Really, this connection to like other dimensions. So essentially, as I've said before in the first video, we are dealing with beings that are interdimensional. They have the ability to go through space and time, which then essentially makes them four-dimensional. And they've probably been on this planet a long time. Okay. And they're more than likely, in my view, related to those creatures who predate humans. Who knows what was existing? But obviously, it wasn't us. We are a newer creation, in my view. You know, there was different forms of human, but obviously they didn't work. So we had to be upgraded from those other ones because they weren't able to progress to the same level that we did, starting out with the Sumerians, the very first civilization that we know of that existed on this planet. So I think that's the biggest thing that we really need to examine is, are we essentially descendants of reptiles? I know people are going to say, oh, this is craziness. But it is oftentimes thought of that we did come from the ocean. We did come from the sea. Were we at one point living underwater? I mean, essentially our bodies are made up 70% or more of water. I don't know the exact percentage, but I know it's a lot. So if we're made of water, could we at one point have lived underwater? Like some, reptiles do. Like think of a sea turtle. Not all reptiles live underwater. Lizards don't. Turtles kind of go in and out of water. I had one growing up. And sea turtles almost live exclusively underwater, except to lay their eggs. So how do we know that somewhere along the line we don't have a similar common ancestor with reptiles? We don't. I mean, we have a tailbone. How do we know that that tailbone wasn't at one point an actual tail? I mean, there are people who have genetic diseases where they have tails. How do we know that at one point we didn't have a tail? Okay, all this sounds crazy, I know. But I think, the more that I think about a lot of this stuff that's going on, the more that I think, well, is it just humans existing on this planet? Are we coexisting with different other civilizations that either lived on this planet before us or predate even the dinosaurs? I don't know how far back it can go. Those are questions I just don't have the knowledge of. I don't know everything. I never said I did. And I never said none of this stuff that I'm, talking about in this podcast is the truth. These are speculations. That's why I call this series speculations of the nature of the UAP and NHI phenomena. And this one, I'm really focusing on the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis, which was actually coined by a guy in around like the mid to late 2000s before he died in '09. His name was Mac Toomey's. And he wrote a really good book called The Cryptoterrestrials. And that's what he talks about, is that essentially that we have coexisted on this planet, even prior to humans, with civilizations that were more technologically superior and they're cognitively superior to humans. I mean, it's arrogant to think that we're the only technologically advanced species on this planet or even in this universe. But why is the extraterrestrial hypothesis not really plausible? Well, I think that for these creatures to be coming to this planet from another planet, to me, just doesn't make sense because they appear to be here. And like I said, with these recent drone or UAP sightings, if these are not ours and it's theirs, is this their way of telling us we're here and we always have been here? And it's time for humans to wake up and to realize that there's a lot more to life than what we see on the surface. We see ourselves and we think that we're so great. But in reality, there might be things that are far greater than us. If only we had an open mind and realized, hey, there's something here. There's something to this. So let's continue to really, have this dialogue because there's something going on here. And it doesn't appear to be anything normal. There's just something going on. I mean, to some people, it's scary. It's really scary to think about, hey, there's things on this planet that we don't know about, things on this planet we don't understand. People have claimed to see Bigfoot. I don't know if Bigfoot exists. Some speculated Bigfoot could be creatures that existed before us, or they could be a byproduct of genetic experimentation. I think it's the latter, genetic experimentation, because you just don't see that many of them, and you don't see a lot of evidence. But there's been enough Bigfoot sightings over the years to say that there's something to it. So what do we do? What do we do with all this information if it is true? Well, one, I think we need to look at what are our intentions if we are actually dealing with creatures that are more superior than us, that are native to this planet. Are we going to go to war with them? No. After all, they've said these drones or UAP that people have been seeing, like in New Jersey, at those bases in Britain, and then at Langley a year ago, that they're not hostile. There's no nefariousness about them. Okay, then what are they doing? Well, the theory is that if they are also natives to this planet, are they trying to protect not just us, but themselves? Because they are fearful of nuclear weapons being used on us and against them, but also environmental destruction. And if you look at a lot of alien abductions and then the message sent in that aerial school in 1994 in Africa, you're really in Zimbabwe, you're really talking about something that has investment like we do in this planet. And if the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis isn't real, if it's the extraterrestrial hypothesis, then why would they have such investment on this planet? I mean, it's great if they're selfless and really caring and compassionate. We like that. Okay? We want that to happen. We want them to be caring, compassionate, loving. But are they? We don't know. I don't totally convinced that they're here to save us, but I am convinced that they want us to save ourselves. So this is why it's important that we start getting along as humans, and that we stop fighting, and we stop these wars, and we start open dialogue to resolve our differences and to start taking care of this planet. Because I think these creatures, wherever they come from, regardless of their origins, are trying to send us a message. Clean up our act, clean up our planet before we self-destruct. And so I think it's important that we keep an open mind and we realize that this planet may not just be ours. So that's pretty much what I have to say today for this podcast. Um, I kind of went more on a rant today, but I felt like that this message sort of transcends um, and try to relate it, transcends just giving information and really warrants some discourse about the future of our civilization. Because there's something else, there's something more to this world. And we can't just sit here and let things happen. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. This is my second podcast. I'm going to end the speculations one, and I think the next episode I'll delve into some other topics. I've thought about like out of body experiences, maybe a little bit more near death experiences. And I'm reading this book right now on near death experiences by Anthony Peake. So maybe once I'm done reading it, I can kind of talk about it and get a little bit more go in depth with the simulation hypothesis. So, or simulation theory. All right, well, thank you. I'm going to end this episode today, but let's just continue searching, coming up with some ideas on what we need to do to make this world and our own world a better place.